School is back, and Dick's Sporting Goods has what you need to win your year. Shop the hottest styles from the best brands like Nike, Jordan, FP Movement, Adidas, and Stanley. Stop by your local store or visit Dicks.com for fast shipping. Now you're ready to win your year.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying time is here. That's right. We're talking about 1986, The Wraith on Kill by Kill. Well, greetings and salutations, Internet. It's your old pal, Patrick Hamilton, coming to you once again from Big K's Burgers. This is the Kill by Kill podcast, where we are dedicated to celebrating the horror's least discussed topic, the characters. So we're going to unpack all the goriest of details. In fact, I'm not even sure there are any gory details to 1986 The Wraith, in the hopes that a road pirate's untimely end is just the beginning of the jokes we might make at their expense. And as always, there's only one person I trust to make a cheeseburger so rare that a vet can revive it. The one, the only, Gina Radcliffe. How are you doing today, Gina?
Well, I just got in after I materialized from 3 beams of light out of the sky.
Yeah, I mean, how was the interdimensional traffic? I mean, it seems fine once you get back on Earth. That seems like a very open roadway, but was the place in between heaven, hell, or another dimension, was that really blocked up?
Well, we're getting into the holiday season, so it was a little hectic, a little stop and go as other, souls return to the place of their departure.
Sure. After being slashed in a motel room and the woman that you were making love to kind of doesn't remember. Gina, we have another selective memory loss problem in a movie we're covering this year. Oof. A lot of people just losing time over the course of a movie's events seems to be a real thing and trend in the movies that we're covering this year.
Yeah.
But I don't want to scare you after such a long interdimensional drive. But we are not alone. That's right. We have a special guest. Now, you know him as a film critic at The Wrap and from his podcast at the critically acclaimed network, including Canceled Too Soon. And now I am proud to announce that he is a returning champion here to Kill by Kill, the one, the only William Bibbiani. How are you doing today, Bibbs?
I am ready for my rematch. I've been watching very bad horror movies with cars in them while Eye of the Tiger was playing in the background, just getting ready for this masterpiece we're going to discuss on this week's episode.
Now, certain guests seem to get into, I don't know, whether it's karma, is it fate?
I'd call it a rut.
They get into a groove in our show for whatever reason. Right. One of our delightful guests always gets handed killer rat movies. Ooh. And so I reached out to you and I said, will you be our possessed car correspondent? Hoping that my memory of this was faulty, that there was secretly a good movie in The Wraith. And first impressions of, was this your first venture with The Wraith?
Oh no! I had seen The Wraith. I assure you, I missed it. This is a movie came out in the mid 1980s, and even the crap in the 1980s tended to get canonized very quickly, just because it was on TV a lot. But this is one of the ones that I missed a lot over and over again. But I kept meaning to get back to it because if you look at the movie, if you look like the VHS box, if you saw like a commercial on TV, it was extremely unclear what kind of movie it was. Is it like an Outsiders, sort of teen car movie or teen rebellion movie? Is it a horror movie about a ghost attacking car guys? Is it like an action movie about a guy in a cool costume that people wear while driving cars? in the thing. It's very funny that I got labeled the car guy because I know nothing about cars, by the way. This amuses me to no end. My dad would be laughing at me right now if he was still alive. So I kept missing it. It never really came up. And then it finally, I think it got like a fancy home video release from like Shout Factory or something. And
it was Vestron, but yes. It was Vestron. When they were trying to be Shout Factory, yeah.
Well, and bless them for it. And I finally picked it up around then, and I immersed myself in the nightmare-fueled world that is The Wraith. Or, as you'll notice in the way that the title is actually painted out on the screen, the title of the movie is actually Wraith the.
Yeah.
Because the is at the bottom.
Yeah, it's an interesting motif. It's a real, that title card's got a graphic design is my passion vibe to it. Like,
yeah, it's not your expertise, though.
I just like to do it. Okay. And so, yeah, this movie has an odd sort of place in that it has no place. Like, it's just both forgotten and then it feels like you've seen it before. And weirdly enough, we're recording this just after our episode on Popcorn came out, which
great movie.
I described as, in the 90s when slashers were dead, there was a movie that had a real meta take on it all. And 5 years before that, there was Popcorn. It's like Popcorn was Scream before Scream. Scream's more successful in many, many ways, but Popcorn's trying to do that thing. This is The Crow before The Crow, or it's High Plains Drifter after High Plains Drifter.
It can be both of these things and more. I was actually watching it this time, and I hadn't noticed in my initial watch that even like the character names are similar to The Crow. Like there's a bad guy named Skank in both The Crow and The Wraith, and then there's a character named Gutter Boy in The Wraith and a character named Fun Boy in The Crow. And in both films, those two guys are like the serious drug addicts. And in this movie, they're the guys who are like huffing WD-40 to get high. So I think someone somewhere saw this movie and subconsciously may have influenced them. That or someone who made The Crow got rocketed back in time somehow and needed to work. So they ended up on this film. That's what Time Rider's about, right?
Yeah, I think that both those theories can be true. It is weird to hear the director talk about, I feel like The Crow is a real ripoff, and then say, but we were really inspired by High Plains Drifter. Like, we mere breaths from one another.
Right. Well, the idea of we did something bad and something supernatural is coming to get us is probably as old as the idea of a campfire.
Absolutely true.
Yeah. It's been done. It's been done, and it's been kind of codified. You know, it's not always about where a genre begins. It's about which film or book or whatever sort of defines it and makes it easy to copy.
Yeah.
And that's what we're often talking about when we talk about that. Like, oh, there's an earlier film. Yeah, there's definitely actually films that follow like the slasher movie rules before Halloween came out. I mean, if you look at like Home for the Holidays with Sally Field, that's exactly a slasher movie. But Halloween was the one that made it easy to rip off. And that's why we give it all the credit.
Yeah. This movie is absolutely in the vein of many a revenge-o-matic. These people did bad things. They are going to pay for it. Now, they're going to pay for it via supernatural interdimensional race car driver. Mm-hmm. But it's something we've seen before, which begs the question, Gina Radcliffe, had you seen The Wraith before?
I must have. As I was pointed out, this was another one of those cable staples for a little while, and then just kind of disappeared in the ether, never to be spoken about again. So I certainly remember seeing the ads on HBO and being. I feel like the running theme of this episode and us discussing this show is it being unclear what this movie is supposed to be. Because the trailers that I recall seeing on cable when I was young, when this movie was first available on there, made it look like a science fiction movie. Mm-hmm. And indeed, when when I looked online after watching this to look up a little bit of the backstory on it, depending on where you looked, it was alternately described as sci-fi, horror or romance. And I can unequivocally say it's none of those things. Like it maybe like kind of touches
kind of all of them
a little bit of horror, but it's not scary.
Yeah.
You know, I guess you could say there's, you know, a soupçon of romance, but the movie itself is so uninterested in this romance that it's barely developed.
Well, it doesn't help that you've got one half of that romance locked into this abusive relationship which you cannot escape, and apparently adults do not exist in this town.
Oh yeah. This is one of those teen movies that could be solved if anyone had parents.
Right. But
like literally
sadly,
any character had parents. This movie's
the great parent purge of Arizona in 1986
Yeah, they live
took care of that.
They live in the same town as Children of the Corn.
Yep, this is what happens. This is what happens. Also, you might notice there's not much corn left. The kids, they can't manage a corn business.
No, they can't. No, they throw it all behind He Who Lives Behind the Rose. And He Who Lives Behind the Rose, turns out, does not have a green thumb. It's weird that way.
Yeah, I mean, the only adult figure you have in this town is Randy Quaid, and he could not give a shit less about this town, about these kids, about these kids getting murdered.
That makes him really sympathetic, though, because I actually understand his perspective. Like I'm with. It's like when you're watching Madam Web and you realize that someone told Dakota Johnson your entire character note is you don't want to be here today, and Dakota Johnson on the set of Madam Web said, "I know exactly how that feels. I can do that."
Yeah.
And that's Randy Quaid in this movie. And I love it. Like Randy Quaid, he's Randy Quaid. And at this point in his career, he had like some real force to his performances. Like he really showed up in movies. I feel like his entire thing here is here's what I'm going to bring to the character. I'm going to eat. Like most of the time I'm snacking. And I think this is what Brad Pitt ripped off when he did Ocean's 11, was he was watching The Wraith. And he was like, how did Randy Quaid emerge unscathed from this movie? Well, he snacked, so I'm going to constantly be eating in Ocean's 11. This movie is much more important than people give it credit for.
People remember the cheeseburger. They don't remember the movie.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's weird. Randy Quaid does have a very laconic view here. This is hot off of his year-long run on Saturday Night Live. A year-long run that never repeated. He was not asked back. And he's told, you're not coming back right before cameras start to roll. He, like, the last words he reads are a telex from his agent saying, you better find something else after this. You're not going back to New York. And
man.
It reads in every scene that he's in.
Yeah, I mean, it's every scene that he comes into, I feel like he's just going to start every line reading with a labored sigh.
The thing is, though, I think
tell me again about the ghost car.
The thing with Randy Quaid, though, and I think it's weird because Randy Quaid is one of those actors who I feel like a lot of people today only know him from like one of two things. Either the National Lampoon Vacation movies, because those have had some intergenerational staying power.
Right. Yeah.
Or being absolutely unhinged on the internet. And both of those things are true. Do not get me wrong. But in the 70s and the 80s, he was a respectable actor. He was nominated for an Academy Award in 1973.
Yeah, that was like for the one with Jack Nicholson. Right?
The Last Detail.
Yeah, Last Detail. Yeah.
Yeah, he was nominated for an Emmy for playing Lyndon Johnson like 2 years after this movie came out. Like he had like a respectable and really diverse acting career at this point, and this really does feel like Uwe Boll is a director who's famous for making some of the crappiest movies ever made, but they tend to have, or at least they used to, really big names in them. And you would see like, oh, who plays the bad guy in Blood Rain? Ben Kingsley? How did you get Ben Kingsley? And I interviewed him once and he said, here's the trick. Call people up at the last minute and ask, what are you doing this weekend? Yeah. If the answer is nothing, I can give you a paycheck. And then you just, he says, as long as you don't care who plays what role, you can get big actors. Which says a lot, I think, about his oeuvre. But it also just feels like Randy Quaid was like, hey, do you want to like go to New Mexico for 4 days and get a paycheck? And he's like, it's kind of hot, but Yeah. All right. Yeah. I
Okay.
just got fired. I got time.
Yeah, I got a mortgage and I'm not being paid by the week anymore. So, yeah, one more week's paycheck works for me. Now, in terms of genre, I want to return to this that Gina mentioned, that it's a sci-fi, it's horror, it's romance, it's a teen pick, it's a revenge-o-matic, it's all these things. But do any of you consider this film to be a tokusatsu? There's a T to an S there. This qualifies in Japan as something that inspired people to make Super Sentai VRV Master. This movie qualifies as this mythical hero who has a cool car and does magical things. So it's like Power Rangers. It's like Ultraman. In Japan, this has that cred for whatever reason, just because it kind of ticks just enough boxes and just the right people saw it and said, well, what if we made this superhero's car look like the Dodge M4S Turbo? Yeah. And they did.
Yeah. Well, the thing with that, and this is something I actually think is really interesting, is that I do not believe for 1 second that Mike Marvin, the writer and director of The Wraith, I would be shocked if that dude saw like Ultraman or Inframan and was like, that's what I'm getting at.
You're right.
I really don't think so. But I do think it's interesting that you could, if you just sort of look at it just from a slightly different angle, you absolutely could look at it as a tokusatsu. And because it is about a hero of sorts. He has a cool costume. He has a cool car. He stops cool bad guys. All of the villains in this movie are basically Bulk and Skull from Power Rangers.
Right. Yeah.
The difference is that in most of those other shows, the person who is in this case, they're a vengeful spirit, but Kamen Rider or whatever, they're the protagonist.
Right. Yeah.
They are. And this movie really doesn't have that kind of emphasis on the character of the Wraith, who is played. I feel like they want you to not know for sure who it is, but if you're watching it as I watched it on Amazon Prime, and they have that like X-ray function whenever you pause it, Charlie Sheen is like in his first shot. I paused it just to do something real fast, and it just said Charlie Sheen as the Wraith, and I'm like, well, there you go.
Yeah,
great.
You also like. I mean, the thing that always got thrown at prom night for a really long time was like, oh, it's a slasher movie that's got red herrings. And you're like, not really. it's a movie that's got decision paralysis. You can throw that at it, but it's not inherent to the actual core of the movie because they couldn't decide what they wanted to do. And here, I don't think they had the room to do what they wanted to do because you only have Charlie Sheen for a week. I heard they only had him for a couple of days. And it really does feel like it. He's not in this movie very much. No, this movie is told from the perspective of the villains, which is unusual. I was
genuinely surprised that 75% of the screen time is devoted to this gang, and Charlie Sheen gets maybe, I don't know, a dozen lines of dialogue, maybe.
I'd be surprised if he's in more than 10% of this movie.
He just disappears for and then
huge chunk.
Like 45, 50 minutes in the middle of it. He's introduced and then he's like, I'll see you tomorrow for the end of the movie. And that's it.
He shows up like, I'm like 50 minutes into this movie and he just rode up on a motorcycle. And I've seen this movie before. And I literally said aloud, oh, Charlie Sheen's in this.
Yeah.
And I've literally been watching it. Like
I think there's also the pallor, which I did not know up front about this movie. First of all, Mike Marvin comes from the world of ski stunts. So he would also not be a person who would be like, we've got this desert road rage revenge-o-matic picture that is sci-fi and horror. Get me the guy who did ski stunts for Hot Dog the Movie and Better Off Dead. That is not my first call. But he had shepherded the project. He had tried, this had been his baby. And so he had pushed it up through Disney. And then they finally said no. And he sold it to independent producers. And they say yes. And he gets a really good car guy and Buddy Lee Hooker to do car stunts. Now, for those of you who aren't entirely stunt nerds like I am, Buddy Lee Hooker is the guy who you get to make killer fucking car chase sequences. He did all the car stuff for things like Hooper, all right? So he knows how to do this shit. But 2 days into filming the car stunts, one of the cameramen dies in a very routine sequence of shooting material for this. And so there's a pallor that kind of comes over the rest of this that I have to feel once again in a sort of George Lucas everything rhyme sort of way with The Crow. Now the independent producers who are up for this are like struggling to figure out how are we going to do all this and still have enough. Do we shut down the movie and just let it all go to insurance? Do we try to make something out of it? We have a bunch of commitments. How does this work? And you have a guy who basically has filmed ski stunts as your director. And so, you know, I will take this direct quote that he gave to former guest Heather Wixon over at Dread Central about this. He said, in the original script, Ramsey's character enlists the psychic connections of a prairie witch, in which he starts to piece together the plot of the movie. The studio didn't want to spend money and finish that storyline out, so we only shot part of it, and the rest was left on the editing room floor. We literally shot everything around the prairie witch, but I didn't have her, and I didn't have those scenes. It's a shame, because it would have been very cool. And I have to ask, would this movie be better with the Prairie Witch or really great car stunts?
I have a theory about that, and that is that I think this movie would have been better with any exposition.
Yes.
Like literally there's so much, and you can tell that Mike Marvin's really obsessed with this. He has it in his head that there is lore here. Like, it's not that Charlie Sheen comes back from the dead. He comes back from the dead in like a slightly different body, and he alludes to that, saying it's the closest I could get.
Yeah, he couldn't hadn't stared at himself in the mirror long enough to make it perfect.
Maybe, or maybe it's like a chances are kind of thing. You just kind of get whatever body you come back, and he was like the closest person who's available who just died, like in Heaven Can Wait or something. Why does he get this car? Why is this car supernatural? Who in outer space or heaven designed this car? When he gives the car away at the end of the movie, he says there are instructions at the glove box. Who printed them out?
He gave his brother a murder weapon and said, drive it around a little.
And again, it has instructions. So someone wrote them out in heaven or space. Like, and there's this whole thing. And the first time I saw this movie, I had no damn idea what the hell they were getting at, because he would like kill somebody by tricking them into running into his car, which is really his only move.
Yeah.
And
that's all he's got.
And then there'd be all of this wreckage, and then you would cut to like a spindly piece of metal that would then vanish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like they're attached to him originally, like
in one
they're like,
shot.
They're like braces or something, and it's like, okay, I'm surmising that every time he takes a life, he gets stronger somehow, but nobody ever actually says that.
No one ever says that out loud. That is never, I mean, not that we need these clunky exposition dumps, but sometimes just getting it out of the way is just, thank God you got it out of the way. Just crank it out, give us what we need to know, and then we can enjoy the movie.
But delivered via Prairie Witch, would that have made it better?
Okay, here's if we were told the only other option was having no idea what's going on, I would say yes, that is better. Is there a better way to do that? God, I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, this definitely could use a scene where Randy Quaid goes into use somebody's mystical shop of wonders and says, "Tell me about a wraith," and then explain what a wraith is. And somehow it ties into what we're seeing on screen.
It's a trope, and I think we talked about this when we talked about Christine, of just in a horror movie, usually there is one character who has experienced this horror before in some form, and it has harmed them in some way, that left them scarred emotionally, physically. And that tells you how severe this is, and they can tell you what the hell is happening.
Yeah.
It's there for a reason. If you can come up with a better way to do it, please let screenwriters of the world know. But for now, this is kind of the best we got. So do it.
Yeah, this movie definitely needs a Basil exposition.
Yeah. I mean, Gina, what you're suggesting is that this town needs a Crystal Lake shop for mediums and mystics, in which you can get a tome that tells you why Jason Voorhees, when struck by lightning, is reanimated.
Exactly.
Okay.
You're all kaboomed. You're all kaboomed. Because it's cars and they go boom. Yeah.
It's just, he's introduced like it's Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's very, very odd. Like, I mean, I maybe I missed this talk with my parents growing up, but I suppose the film believes that everyone knows that when four comets meet in the dead of the night at the crossroads, that's how babies and rad racing cars are born.
I mean, yes. Then you never had the talk?
No,
they didn't even
I don't
put a
think
pamphlet
did not
on your
have
bed because they were embarrassed to have the crossroads in the middle of the night sci-fi Wraith talk.
Yeah.
You never had when your teacher would put the girls in one room and keep the boys in the other room and show you the film about wraiths.
Yeah. No.
What was the girl film about wraiths? I never got to watch the girl film about wraiths.
It was just the same movie, but they would tell you what you had to do if you got your period and wanted to play tennis.
That sounds like a more useful movie. Honestly,
it really does.
Yeah,
honestly, I kind of want
value in it.
Yeah. After this happens and we get the title card Wraith, we meet a doomed couple who are out for a drive in the middle of the desert, and what they just don't expect, like the Spanish Inquisition, is to have to engage in road war. Also, they're not wearing fucking seatbelts. No one in this movie wears seatbelts, and it drives me crazy.
They don't wear seatbelts, but they put on the helmets before they go drag racing.
I remember when I was a kid, and I was born in the early 80s, and I remember when I was a kid, like the year they finally said, no, seriously, everyone in the country has to wear seatbelts. Yeah. Like there's actually, that didn't used to be universal. People were just sort of like, it's your life. I'm very, very willy-nilly about road safety. So that's something that like reads really weird now. Yeah. But at the time it probably probably wasn't raising a lot of eyebrows.
No.
You know who does raise a lot of eyebrows though, Bibbs? And that is Packard Walsh. He's our main villain here. He's got a cool leather jacket. He has very date-rapey friends. And he has way too much hair on his head in a way that reads it's a wig, even if it's real.
A lot of hair. Hair. Can we just go for, because my favorite thing about this movie is this gang.
Let's get into the gang. Group. That's why we're here.
Such a weird group of guys.
Like I said to you, Patrick, when we were texting about this, that it's like they're on a gang exchange program.
Yes.
Where so they've got like Packard, who kind of has a little bit of a Jim Morrison thing going on, where he's got the pants are a little too tight. He's got the puka shell necklace. He's got the poofy hair.
In a vacuum, he's a handsome man.
Yeah, I mean, he's not. He kind of has a Richard Mole thing going on.
He does have real Richard Mole.
Richard Mole's like younger, slightly sexier brother.
Yeah. And then you've got Tweedledee and Tweedledum, who one guy looks like he basically based his entire costume off of Bill Paxton in The Terminator. And then you've got the other goofball, and then you've got the guy who's just wearing a Letterman's jacket like it's 1958.
Oh, I love that he switches up every scene. He's got something that's just a little bit different. And he also appears to be the CPA of this gang. That's what I really
And then
enjoy.
You've got...
He's keeping the books.
Griffin O'Neill wearing a do-rag.
He looks like Geraldo in the Rico Suave music video.
And then you have Clint Howard.
I love you, Clint.
Playing a character from... The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai.
It feels apparently his character's name is Rughead, and they call him Rugs. Yeah. And it's given his hair, it seems very, very clear that was a conscious Eraserhead reference.
Yes.
Which means nothing in this context. Like there's no actual connection other than we thought that look was good.
None of these people have seen Eraserhead.
I love Clint Howard as an actor. I really do. I think he's underappreciated. I think there are certain character actors who, like, they broke the mold when they made them. We'll never get another Clint He always comes in, and with a couple of weird exceptions, the majority of his career is, I'm in the film for a couple of scenes and I play a really weird guy. Yeah. That's it. That's his whole shtick. He's unafraid to look or sound totally unappealing. Like, he's just the resident weirdo. And this might be, if not his most iconic performance, I think this is his most iconic look. Like, when he is leading a race at like Natalie Wood. And,
I was going to say, he's doing the Natalie Wood thing.
Yeah. When he's doing that and he like, go! And he's like spinning a little scarf around. Like, he's doing this weird kind of like Rumpelstiltskin dance. Like, I absolutely love him. He's the only person in this movie. There are good actors in this movie. He's the only person in this movie who I would argue is actually giving everything the script asks of him. Like, he's, and more. Just really going for it 110%, and bless him for it.
Yeah. I mean, he's walking like he's a broken marionette. He's got that shock wig on his head, and it's halfway to a Yahoo Serious. It is a wild performance. But Gina, I absolutely agree with you. It's like they recruited from every gang around the area. Yeah. And they just like in The Dark Knight when they give people crowbars and they're like, we have 2 openings and there's 4 of you or something like out of Furiosa. The way I put it is they put every gang from the Warriors into a bingo ball cylinder and just started choosing at random. There's nothing that ties these people together other than the fact that they like to steal cars, essentially, because their races are pretty rigged. And then chop shop it, which now puts this movie in such a weird place in our canon because, Gina, for the longest time, we've had so many villains who are like X plus a very confusing Y ... equals profit. And finally, there's a villain who's figured out a business model for his villainy. I steal all the cool cars from teens around these parts, and I put it in my barn chop shop, and I make a profit from it to the point where he has someone running the fucking books.
Yeah,
that is wild.
And he benefits from having the laziest sheriff running his town.
Yes, the bit at the beginning where you find out how his scheme actually works, because chop shop, fine. Mm-hmm. They chase someone down on the road. They force him to stop by blocking the road. Mm-hmm. They kidnap the guy's girlfriend at the beginning, and they threaten her with I don't want to ruin anyone's name, but sexual violence. They threaten her multiple times. Yeah, and they say that if you don't race us, we will do unspeakable things. And if you try to run away in your car, you're going to leave her with us, and we will do unspeakable things. We're horrible people. Correct. And then they say, if you lose the race, you lose your car. And so he loses the race only because Nick Cassavetes plays Packard Walsh. Nick Cassavetes cheats. And then they say, yep, we got your car, free and legal. I don't think that's how legality works.
No.
That's coercion, that's threat, that's kidnapping. I'm pretty sure any cop, even the crappiest cop, could probably make some charges stick in this scenario.
It feels like Sheriff Loomis, and yes, that is a weird Halloween reference they have made, but it feels like Sheriff Loomis is just waiting for a chance to put all of these dickweeds up in chains and send them off to state prison. All he needs is one person to say, he forced me into a car race and then basically stole my car. And if I didn't come back and give him the car, he promised to sexually assault my girlfriend. And he would go, okay, let's arrest all these assholes.
Yep.
I feel like that's a real slam dunk kind of case, not a he said, she said sort of deal.
Well, it raises the question of maybe he's worse than them, because this is Randy Quaid we're talking about here. And we don't know, it seems like he's a good cop, but the fact that he hasn't arrested these guys kind of proves otherwise.
Right.
And so I kept waiting because I'd forgotten kind of where his subplot Well, it doesn't go anywhere, but I kind of thought, I forgot where he went in the movie. And
His
I was kind of
subplot was erased from the movie, and it involves a prairie witch.
I had kind of conflated his character in this movie in my head with the character he played in a pretty underrated action movie called Hard Rain.
Oh,
Yeah, because Hard Rain starred Christian Slater as an armored car driver, and Morgan Freeman is a criminal who like pulls a heist on the armored car, but it's in the middle of a hurricane. And so Christian Slater is on the run trying to escape these guys with the money. And meanwhile, the entire city is flooding, and it's actually a pretty impressive production. Randy Quaid plays the local sheriff. And as soon as he finds out there's a lot of money and like maybe like all the evidence will get washed away, he's like, screw it, I'm a bad guy now.
Yeah.
And I kind of just kept waiting for Randy Quaid to like, after no one else was in the room, take Nick Cassavetes aside and just says, we talked about this. You guys need to be more careful. Where's my cut?
Right. Exactly.
But it never quite goes there.
It never quite goes there. If this had been the Platinum Dunes remake of this, absolutely would have layered that in. They would never have let this lie. They love to make the town in on it, even if it makes no fucking sense.
They love subtext.
Well, yeah, and like the whole town is just absolutely cowed by this gang of car thieves. Yeah. Like even after they all start dying off, like they still just let this guy come in and just literally pick up women and throw them over his shoulder like he's a caveman. He beats this poor kid in the parking lot, and everybody's just like, oh, there he is again doing his thing.
That's a Tuesday.
It's like, come on, people, Jesus.
Again, but there's no parents. Again, like no one. These are all teenagers.
It is a town run entirely by teenagers.
Yes.
Exactly. And so there's no, and again, that's something that I feel like movies about teenagers used to have more back in like the latchkey 80s era.
Right.
Like the idea is, listen, your parents have got divorced. They have to work more. And as a result, whenever your parents aren't around, it's the road warrior. Like it's just, it's complete lawless anarchy whenever your parents aren't around, and they're never around. And that's something we don't really do anymore in movies.
Like that poor kid looks like he's running that entire hamburger restaurant by himself.
He is.
Miserable.
And he's doing a terrible job. Did you see the conditions of those burgers? Those hot dogs are charcoal briquettes.
That was the standard in the 80s. if you couldn't, like, hot dogs used to crunch like Ruffles. You would take a bite of your hot dog and it would sound like you're biting into a big old bag of Nerds candy.
You're not wrong. Like just this shriveled finger on a barbecue grill.
And I think the only two of this crew that we really haven't mentioned in detail are Skank and Gutter Boy, who I feel like this movie is like, well, this is a very kind of almost proto Mad Max sort of situation where it's lawless and the cops aren't really involved and there's road war. So we'll just make them Australian road bullies. Like you pull these two and you put them into a Mad Max movie, they fit right in. You can't. How long does it take Skank, Mr. Skank? No, that was your father? Okay, Skank. How long does it take him to get ready in the morning? Because he has elaborate makeups. This is a guy who is huffing WD-40 on the regular. And he's like, I'm not leaving until this eyeliner is perfect. There's a lot of emphasis on makeup looks.
Right.
And not on maintaining brain cells.
Here's what you don't understand.
But it's just him. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm agreeing with you. Here's what you don't understand. The WD-40 is for him. The makeup is for you.
Oh, I see. Okay.
He values you more than he values himself. It's a form of self-sacrifice.
It's presentational. It's like, you don't have to inquire as to who I am. I'm going to present as such. But it is a lot of work. He is going through multiple hair colors over a very short time periods. And he's just like, today my eye is a paisley. Today my face has these weird marks on them that looks like I'm in a 90s Marvel comic. It's a lot going into this. Whereas Gutter Boy, he has one perfect row of rotted teeth, and otherwise he would be more at home staring deeply at a Fisher-Price well for sensitive boys. And for whatever reason, Skank loves chaos and Gutter Boy loves Skank. And so when they're told, watch out for Charlie Sheen, they kind of do it one night.
If Charlie Sheen drives in front of them, they'll follow Charlie Sheen. If he doesn't, because here's the thing. I don't feel bad for Skank and Gutter Boy because they've been, if not participated, they participated in like all of these like street crimes, and the character Charlie Sheen plays was murdered prior to the events of the movie, and they were at least accomplices. Yes. So I don't really feel bad for them, but I do feel as though they are like the poster children for peer pressure. Like there was a good like 2 years ago, they showed up to school in like powder blue t-shirts, with like, those nice little knapsacks with like a latch on them, and their mom made them up real nice. And
penny loafers.
Yeah. And then they met Nick Cassavetes, and it just, what? You're afraid to huff WD-40? You're not doing it. I'm not cool like you. I guess we're going to huff this WD-40. Like they clearly, these are tragic figures.
Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Shopify is there to help you grow. Shopify helps you sell everywhere, from their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system. Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout, 36% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms, and sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. What I love about Shopify is how no matter how big you want to grow, Shopify gives you everything you need to take control and take your business to the next level. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S., and Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
She said, get out the chat room and clean mine.
The Glad Girl Group coming at you with a throwback jam. That was Glad Force Flex Drawstring Trash Bags featuring Pine Sol Original Scent. And that's better than all good. It's all Glad.
Back to school list keeping you up? The thought of routine making you toss and turn? Put all that to bed with Ollie Sleep. From kids' sleep gummies all the way to extra strength sleep gummies for adults, Ollie can help everyone fall and stay asleep. Do wellness on your terms. Find Ollie at Walmart or Target near you, or at OLLY.com.
Ollie!
These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
I don't have a lot of sympathy for Packard. Like, there's definitely, obviously, he's obsessed with and stalking Sherilyn Fenn. And he says, you're mine, you're my property, even though they've never apparently even dated.
I think he stole her pink slip by the way he acts.
Yeah, like he's clearly like lost and sad. And, there's a pitiable quality to him, but the way he acts on it is absolutely monstrous, and it's entirely in his own control, and he's doing it all himself. A lot of his other characters, like, Clint Howard kind of gets away from this. Because he's just like, dude, I was just in it for the cars. I hated all of this crap all along. I'm out. I'm done. I didn't want any part of it to begin with.
He has marketable skilles.
He does have marketable skills. He's going to be fine. In the Wraith 2, he's going to team up with Charlie Sheen's brother. He's going to be like the microchip to Charlie Sheen's brother's The Punisher.
Sure.
All right. And it's all going to turn out okay. We'll get to that eventually. We finally got another Beverly Hills Cop. Surely Wraith 2 is around the corner.
Apparently, multiple scripts have been written over the years. No one has bitten at the apple that is the Wraith 2. But then again, no one has bitten at the apple, which is the Apple 2. And I think I'd rather have that movie.
Touche.
So now I think the only Oogie would be our last remaining major
Augie
gang member.
Augie. Like Augie Doggy and
Augie?
Doggy Daddy.
Is it like Augie Doggy?
They said
That
it was
sort
like
of-
Augie. Yeah.
Augie.
Yeah,
Okay.
Augie's on screen like long enough to drop a homophobic slur, and then he just dies.
Yeah, he's fodder. He's just there to die quickly so that more important characters can live a little longer.
That crash of that car is lovingly filmed.
Oh, yeah. They hated Augie.
They're going to destroy that dry environment in Arizona any way they can. And they got one crash that they're really going to get every single angle of it at. And that car is donezo.
I kind of miss the days when a car exploding or like driving off of like a cliff or a hill, when that was like a selling point. Like, ooh, we get to see a car explode.
Yeah.
You know, and they would cover it from the multiple angles just so you really got to look at that car explode, because
it's a cheap
that's what we
special
had.
effect at the time, because you don't need as many clearances, and you're like, what are you going to do tomorrow? I'm going to send this burning car off a ravine. Don't worry, we'll hose it down.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, here's the $50 permit. That's as much as they were asking for in Arizona at the time. I mean, we covered last month Dracula's Widow, which is not the greatest movie, but you're sort of struck at what was super cheap at the time, which was to film on Hollywood Boulevard in the middle of the night with a dozen police cars. This was, you could do this for pennies on the dollar.
That could be a straight to video film.
Yeah.
That would be actually like be worth spending the money on. Yeah. No, it's wild.
Yes.
Yeah.
But so, this isn't an entirely inexpensive film. It's like just a hair under $3 million.
Yeah.
And I do feel like you're seeing most of that money on screen, because how else would you get this car, which was really, most concept cars are erased from history. And this one was lovingly filmed, was so hyped at the time. It was the pace car for the Indy 500. And then it goes on to inspire a season of Japanese children's television.
Yeah.
So it has more impact than most, concept cars ever do. It is pretty rad. But if you took a drink every time you saw a Dodge logo in this motion picture, your liver would melt.
My liver melted anyway. It's just that kind of movie. There was a time when like these kinds of like in the 80s, when like sci-fi movies kind of exploded in popularity, because we finally had like the technology and skill set to do them even on a relatively low budget and make them look kind of respectable. Like the audience didn't have to do more than half of the imagination for the movie, so they started getting a lot more of them. And one of the things that they would do to sort of beef up these movies is to take like the most like high-tech, high concept cars they could find. I mean, what is Back to the Future? The DeLorean looks kind of futuristic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's weird to think about that nowadays. That movie was made for the very first time. It would be a Cybertruck. Like it would be. That's exactly the kind of novelty factor that the DeLorean had. But there was another movie that came out this exact same year. It also co-starred Nick Cassavetes, called Black Moon Rising.
Oh, you're right.
Which was written by John Carpenter, and I think it's a little underrated as a film, but it's like Tommy Lee Jones plays a thief, and like he hides something inside this car thinking he'll get back to it later, but it turns out it's like a high-tech concept car, and like he has to team up with Linda Hamilton to get it back. And that stunt in like Furious 7 when they have to like
crash from building to building.
Yeah, they drive a car from one building to another, like flying through the air. They stole that from Black Moon Rising, but Black Moon Rising did it.
Yeah.
It wasn't a CG. They just did that thing. That movie kicks ass. So I just wanted to make some good come of this, because people might listen to this and go, oh, I should see The Wraith, and then they'll be mad at us. So now they can see Black Moon Rising and go, oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, I won't cancel my subscription.
The scales are balanced.
Yeah.
So, and so we've talked around him a little bit, but this movie does feature Jake. He's young. He's hot. He's definitely got a multitude of undiagnosed mental health conditions, topped off with a healthy drug addiction problem. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just describing Charlie Sheen. Jake is wearing a Canadian tuxedo without a shirt. So, see, there's a spin on it.
Just riding a motorcycle, no shirt on. Always
No
a
shirt,
shirt
no
on.
helmet. No.
No. Don't need him. Jake asked for directions from Carrie, played by a pre-Twin Peaks era Sherilyn Finn, resplendent in a pink shirt dress with more darts in it than a British pub. It's a lot of hard angles.
Later she's got an outfit on that is like a fringed jacket with white cowboy boots, and I never felt so homesick for the 80s in my life. Like that is just it in a nutshell. The acid washed fringed jacket. It's like, yes, take me back.
Those were the days.
It's really wild. I mean, the thing is, like, there's a lot of stuff in here that is just very unrepresentative of the 80s. It's more 80s as seen in the movies, like, you know, Australian Road Bullies and the sort of like 60s throwback.
Oh, it has almost no connection to reality. It's clearly like everything I've learned from watching movies.
Exactly.
Kind of vibe. Yeah.
Yeah. But there is a whole lot of background work where you're like, oh, Jesus, I had those shorts. Oh, is that what I look like in a polo button up? Oh, my God. It's a tent on my tiny little high school body. Yes, I absolutely dress like these fucknuts. And so there's a lot going on there that is a perfect representation of what the 80s were. So you take the good, you take the bad. You have them both there. You have the facts of life.
You know,
nothing to do with what we're discussing.
Did you notice also that, and it's funny that because I re-listened to the Fear No Evil episode, and we talked about how we couldn't get over how this cheapy horror movie managed to get such a good soundtrack.
Right.
And this has a lot of contemporary music on it. It has Rebel Yell. I think it has Addicted to Love in one scene.
It does.
It's all
got Ozzy Osbourne, Stan Bush.
It's got, a pretty good, contemporary soundtrack.
It absolutely sounds exactly like an 80s movie should.
Yeah.
From that standpoint, it is pristine.
It
is the right kind of butt rock at the right time in terms of a lot of people. It's like, is that Foreigner? No, it's someone trying to be Foreigner. And that's what the 80s are.
It really is. My podcast co-host, Whitney Seibold, has this theory, and I subscribe to it, that the movies that we think of as sort of like defining a decade, like, Clueless defines the 90s, right? It's one of those types of movies. They're actually not very representative of that decade because they stood out, because they kind of influenced fashion and move on past it. But if you want to look at like just the really cheap cash-in movies that are just trying to like be like just hit any modern zeitgeist, but like not put as much effort into being fashion forward, not put as much effort into having the greatest soundtrack ever assembled.
They're not trying to create a world, they're trying to be in the world.
Right. And a lot of that's a budgetary thing, but regardless, or just a lack of ambition. But yeah, that's probably more indicative of the actual era. In my experience, that's absolutely the case. Like, I would, if anyone says, hey, what did people dress like in the 90s? I would not tell them Clueless. I would tell them, I don't know, Mad Love with like Chris O'Donnell and Drew Barrymore. Yeah. Like there was a lot of flannel, dude. It was mostly flannel for about 4 years.
Because people could not get enough of it. And,
well, they made too much, and they just sort of started giving it away.
We've covered a couple of 80 movies here in the past that, and even with Popcorn, where it felt like there was some sort of Amish movement where we were just trying to cover as much of our bodies as we possibly could. And just clothes were oversized.
But that was accurate, though.
Yeah,
like
absolutely true.
That was the era of wearing like a prairie dress with boots.
Yeah,
this was a look I rocked often.
And so if you look off to the margins, especially when they hit the river, right?
Oh God, the river. You mean the ditch?
That is the peak of. I feel like the river sequence is. If you just watched one thing of this movie, I would just watch the river sequence. It's not scary. It's not sci-fi. It's not anything, but it is peak 80s swimsuit season. You have bra bands. You have woven headbands. You have teardrop sunglasses. It has it all, baby.
Very, very oversized swim trunks.
Oh yeah.
Billowless. I seriously, I every time you say the word river, I bristle because It looks like if you were like saying, hey, I need a location for like where there's like a secret toxic waste dump, I would recommend that location. It's just it's a creek at best. Like it is, and I'm not like saying I don't believe it, because I know you live in the small town, you make the best of what you got. I totally get that, but they treat it like it's this really happening cool place, and it's really not. It's really sad, actually, and oh god, it's just god. This is all this town has. They have the nuclear waste dump. And they have the other nuclear waste dump, which is the burger joint. And like those are the only two locations this is their tourism board. It's just these two spots. And we're trying desperately to sell it.
In my estimation, there is one great realistic race sequence in this entire movie. And it is when Charlie Sheen and Sherilyn Fenn get on dueling rafts and push themselves along slimy rocks while having a conversation in real time. It is they're making the most out of that location.
It looks like they're in a wading pool. Like it really does. Like if they stood up, they'd be up to their ankles. Like it's bless them, bless their little hearts.
So they have this little race down the creek until Packard bellows like a hurt dog for Carrie to return to him. And
let's talk about this relationship.
Sure.
If you want to call it. Between, what is it? I keep want to call him Parker. What's the...
Packard. Like a Packard, like a car. Yeah.
Between Packard and Carrie, where... So the best I can surmise is that he murders Jamie.
Yeah.
Because he wants Carrie for himself.
Yes.
Correct.
So he is essentially holding her captive.
Yep.
And telling him, you're my girlfriend, and she just looks at him with black hatred in her eyes.
Right.
Like he tries to touch her, she's like pulling away from him, and like the first opportunity she gets to find another man who could take her away from all this, she takes it. And yet, like, when Packard catches her and Jake, who, surprise is actually Jamie, kissing, he's sitting there in his car crying.
Yeah.
I thought what we had was special.
It's like that scene out of Manhunter, and I'm trying to remember which one came first. Because Manhunter might have gotten that from the Wraith.
Where he rips the dashboard off his car.
Yeah. Hold on, I'm going to look up when Manhunter came out, because they came out real
first. I
probably
think it was. Yeah.
It was.
But aren't they Aren't they both 86? Like,
they
I think
86.
These are.
Manhunter came out in August, and the Wraith came out in November. So not close enough that they could have been a conscious influence, but there was something in the water,
right?
And both Michael Mann and Mike Marvin drank that water.
Right.
That's the only thing they shared.
They have two M's in their name, and that sequence.
Yeah, you're right. They did have more in common. You know what? We should be starting like a good film school compare contrast paper. Just the films of Mike Marvin to the films of Michael Mann. And let me tell you something. If anyone actually writes that paper, I do want to read it. I will not do it. My life is too short. I want you to do it. If you're younger and have more like time ahead of you, you
have more time to expend.
Yeah.
She is looking for the first opportunity she can get to get away from him. Like if a bread truck passed through town, she would jump on the back of it to get away from him. He's acting like no one's ever going to tear us apart.
Yeah, that's where this movie weirdly coincides with a film that comes out 1 year later, The Lost Boys. This is, in a lot of ways, a very unsuccessful telling of The Lost Boys before The Lost Boys as well.
Your brother becomes undead. You're kind of oblivious to it. You're a dweeb. And he is chasing after a girl who is caught up in an evil biker gang. Yeah, they got similarities. I'm not going to fight you on that.
You have a middle-aged character actor slumming it for a week. Yeah, it all kind of adds up, but the math on Lost Boys it adds up so much more.
Well, what's good is the difference.
Yes, it's inherently good. This is not. It just cannot rise to the occasion, and yet there's so many of the same elements, including, as we mentioned before, that soundtrack. Like, it is. This is a soundtrack that gives you something that is full of songs that you're like, that's a thing, and it doesn't add up to much, but yeah, it's right there. Here's another question that I have for both of you, and I really need an answer to this. We've established that this town has almost no adults, but I assume that Carrie has not informed Billy that she has intimate knowledge of her brother's death. Well, like, she, at a certain point, just like blanks this shit out.
She does. She gets
hit on the head.
Yeah, she got concussed. So at first I was really unclear about that, and I really thought, wow, this person is being really cavalier about. I mean, yeah, it's an abusive relationship, and that's terrible, but she's just not doing anything about the murder thing, and doesn't even seem to be responding to it. Even if she doesn't feel like, I don't feel like I can tell anyone, I would totally understand that. But she doesn't seem to be responding with that level of fear. And it isn't until much later in the movie that they clarify that she has no actual memory of it.
It just, but it leaves it out there for so long. It introduces the concept that she witnesses this and then doesn't mention it again for an hour.
Exposition. We need it.
Where's my prairie witch when I need her?
No, the exposition we get is, she was found wrapped in a Navajo blanket. And it's like, why do I need that detail? But you don't tell me why. When these characters die in fiery car wrecks, their bodies are found intact except for their eyes are removed. Why doesn't anyone ever explain why that happens?
Because the prairie witch was supposed to do that.
Yeah.
It's like how they cut out the voodoo subplot of Jaws the Revenge.
Yes, something we know intimately.
Yeah,
Go on.
No, but we do, right? We all know this. Like the original idea for Jaws the Revenge is the reason why the shark follows Lorraine Gary from Amity Island to the Caribbean is because it was supposed to be like a haunted shark. Mm-hmm. They kept the plot point. They just removed the exposition explaining it.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of that.
They just allow her to be an insane middle-aged woman up until the point one person's leg gets at.
No, like, I'm gonna stop you on that. I'm never gonna claim it's a masterpiece, but I actually think Jaws the Revenge is somewhat underrated. And I actually look at Lorraine Gary's performance as an older woman who has been through a lot, living with a bunch of younger people who have absolutely no understanding of what she's been through and kind of wish she'd just shut up. And when the shark finally attacks at the end of that movie... There's one person
who does know what she's been through because he was in the fucking lagoon when the shark attacked.
I know that, but he's still younger. He's younger than her, and he has his life in front of him, and he just wants her to move the hell on, and he is not respecting what she's been through. So that when the shark finally attacks at the end of that movie, Lorraine Gary is obviously horrified, but also vindicated, and I felt something. I'm going to say it right now.
Listen,
I had feelings.
We wholeheartedly believe that everyone with a genuine emotional reaction to a movie cannot be judged. That is your genuine emotional reaction to it. And no matter how wrong you are and how wrong you have to sit in that belief you are, that it is real and I respect it.
Yep.
I also feel like her younger son really didn't need to get his arm bitten off because he wasn't hanging outside of the fucking boat when he got his arm bitten off. It's like the shark just jumped up and goes, snap. And he's like, oh, whoops, I missed an arm. And then he's yelling, oh my God, we can't get into Jaws the Revenge again, Gina. We've been down this road.
Yeah, but yet I feel like the plot of Jaws Revenge is a little clearer than the plot of The Wraith.
Oh, it's much clearer than the plot of
agreed.
I mean to fight this war and win it.
House of the Dragon is back for season 2, and so is the official Game of Thrones podcast. I'm Jason Concepcion.
And I'm Greta Johnson. Together, we are going to be talking about every new episode of the HBO original series, House of the Dragon.
The second season starts Sunday, June 16th, but new episodes of this podcast start on May 22nd.
Listen directly on Max or wherever you get your podcasts.
Good. To war, then.
Hey, parents. Greenlight is here to take one big thing off your to-do list, teaching your kids about money. With a Greenlight debit card and money app of their own, kids and teens learn to earn, save, and invest. You can send money instantly, set flexible controls, and get real-time notifications of your kids' money activity. Set up chores and put allowance on autopilot to reward them for their hard work. Then learn about the world of money together. Get 1 month free when you sign up at greenlight.com/podcast.
Even from the poster, have you taken a close look at the poster from the Wraith? Because
the one where there's 4 kids and they're looking like, am I being passed up by a magical troll car? That poster?
Yeah, they got a little bit like, what?
They're standing by the side of the road. There is a bright light, as if there was like sort of like a slow exposure kind of thing, as like this car zoomed past them, and they're looking after it. But it is Charlie Sheen, it is Sherilyn Fenn, it is Nick Cassavetes, and I think the guy who plays Charlie Sheen's younger brother. I don't really recognize him in this picture. He looks photoshopped within an inch of his life.
And they're a gang. They're like, I discovered a UFO.
They look like they're all friends and are experiencing like an Amblin-esque sense of wonder.
Yeah.
And it is so inaccurate in every conceivable way, except for the fact that like at least 3 of those people are in the movie. I can't really speak to the fourth guy. Like I know at least 3 of them are in the movie, and I'm not even entirely sure that's Sherilyn Fenn. It really, if you told me that was like a stand-in for Sherilyn Fenn when we had to do the poster, I would believe you.
It's like Beatlemania. It's not quite Sherilyn Fenn, but it is an incredible simulation.
Yeah.
So yeah, Packard is just a real wild character, and he practically becomes the lead character because we're in his life the most.
Yeah,
we're in his puka shell necklace.
Yeah, he is honestly both the protagonist and the antagonist in this movie.
Yeah,
yeah.
He's a puzzling choice.
He's the bully and the final girl.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's both psychotic and the fragilest boy who ever lived.
Yeah.
He's all those things and more. And when you look at Packard's toadies, it has a very complex hierarchy in that gang.
Yeah.
Perhaps their success, or lack thereof, has to do with the inconsistent leadership of this doofus. But for whatever reason, we are now introduced to a steady tick where every 15 minutes the Wraith car shows up and Packard goes, "We're racing."
Yeah.
Here's a way we're definitely not going to die, and we're definitely going to get that car, and it doesn't work out in that favor. In the meanwhile, every time that car shows up, I'm like, it's kind of Kit, but
a little, yeah.
with a C. You know, it's not the car from Knight Rider. The acronym spells out Cocaine Ingester 2000.
Oh, that's fun. That's fun. How long did that one take you? Because I'm imagining you.
I don't do acronyms very well.
Okay.
I mean, it does take me a while.
I'm not complaining. I am proud of you. I just wanted to know because listen, if that was off the top of your head, brilliant. If you sat down and did the work, like if you wrote down CIT and then you picked up like a dog-eared dictionary and like you scan through the C's, I'm also impressed because I would admire your work ethic.
Well, you know, I take this job and I put that in dick fingers very seriously.
Thank you.
But it just repeats over and over again, and then one of the crew is the first to die. And then another of the crew is the second to die, and then 2 more are the third and fourth to die. And yeah, for whatever reason, this Kit car can bamf like Knight Rider or Jason Voorhees.
Oh, yeah.
If you read the instructions, you'd know how to do that.
That's very true.
It's in the glove box.
Yeah, and then when you finally transform back into Charlie Sheen at the end, you're like, well, I can't do that anymore. How are you able to do it in the first place? And how do you know you can't do it anymore?
It's another thing. And he says like, hey, pack light. It's a short trip. To where? Heaven? Like, where are we going?
Yeah.
Where are you going?
Like earlier in the movie, he says, my time is running out. Your time for what?
Yeah.
Because you're losing clamps on your arms and legs?
He only rented the car for so long. Like he had a budget.
Right.
Like that's like Jesus's hot rod. And he was like, hey, Jesus, I got to go down and do some revenge killing. And Jesus is just like, all right, but remember to park it back on Mars where you found it.
And bring it back with a full tank. It's like Heaven Rent-A-Car.
Yeah.
Like he has a whole list of things he has to do.
And then he just gives it to his brother like an asshole. Like Jesus is going to be pissed.
like drive this around town. The only car associated with this litany of murder.
I was going to say this Deathmobile.
Yeah. Like Randy Quaid's going to see that car.
Yeah.
Like after this thing is over, he's going to be like, hey, this guy who had a beef with all of those guys who are dead is now seen around town driving the murder car.
Yeah.
Charlie Sheen just doomed his younger brother.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Nice.
I love this heartfelt ending with the brother. He's like, bro. A tearful. I love a tearful bro.
You know, like how in real life when like you meet someone and they're kind of nice to you for a minute and then they leave, and then as soon as they're out the door, you realize, oh wait, that was my dead dad, even though it doesn't look like him or sound like him or have anything to do with him. Dad.
Jake, Jamie. Yeah, like both these characters, the brother and Sherilyn Fenn's character, it just suddenly dawns on them. They both have it. It's you. And it's like
he doesn't even tell him really.
I was like, how do you know that?
Like, how did you determine that? Like, is that a guess?
Again,
because
that's exposition. You need to say like, listen, I'm actually Jamie, and I came back in a different body. Did you see Wonder Woman 1984? Because it would have come out 2 years earlier. No, I'm getting my timelines wrong. Listen, that didn't make sense either, but this is kind of what we're going for here. So we're just gonna have to.
Well, speaking of things that don't make sense, at one point they open the engine is in the back. Of car, and they see it pulsate and it has electrical energy.
Yeah,
and then literally 3 scenes later, they visit the same airplane graveyard from My Science Project, and I'm like, the fuck is in the water around this point?
Well, I think only Clint Howard actually saw the pulsing engine, to be fair. And I wonder, did you guys ever see, it was really great, it only lasted 1 season, we covered it on our show Canceled Too Soon, a sci-fi original series called Blood Drive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the engines in Blood Drive, I would not be surprised if this engine from the Wraith was actually a conscious inspiration for it. But because that's a movie about like a cross-country car chase, but the cars literally run on blood and the drivers have to like feed people into their engine in order to drive. Awesome show. Really good.
I enjoyed it immensely. I think sci-fi had some great stuff that literally flew under the radar. And it was prime TV and there was too much good stuff on the air. And for whatever reason, they let really good shows kind of out there for a little while, and sometimes they would flounder, but there's real gems in there.
Yeah.
They had a dark matter that I really enjoyed. It made no fucking sense, but I loved every character on that show.
There you go. So yeah, I don't know about, I think, and Clint Howard saw that engine and he was like, and he kind of noped out shortly afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that one maybe isn't, I'm going to say they played fair in that one. Can we give the Wraith just the teensiest bit of credit? Like just one time. And then we can say the rest of it
makes sense.
Okay, good.
That part makes sense. That he has confronted something he can't explain.
Mm-hmm.
He knows he's surrounded by complete idiots. And he's like, you know what? I have literal skills that I can sell outside of this. I'm not in league with a bunch of fucking murderers. Road pirates, I'm totally down for.
Oh, yeah.
I get to work on engines. It's great. But murder and a death cult, I'm just not going to be a part of.
We got to draw a line somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was surprised that for a small municipality, there's a lot of alleyways in that burg. When they have an alleyway chase with Jake on a motorcycle and those 2 doofuses, the movie goes through alleyway after alleyway after alleyway filled with rotted lettuce. And I'm like, who's eating a fucking salad in that town? Why do you need so much heads of lettuce?
Well, lettuce actually contains a lot of moisture and it's the desert.
Sure.
So
there you go.
Now who looks foolish?
I don't know.
Me for coming up with an explanation for that.
I do like at one point Packard decides what they're going to do is just he is also going to cut and run. He's going to pick up Carrie and they're going to head west to some place where they can live their lives like they were meant to, like Santa Barbara. And I can tell you, I was just in Santa Barbara. I don't think these two would fit in. Santa Barbara For as many puka shells as there are floating around that berg, I don't think it's a place for hot rod Corvettes and stealing cars via road piracy. That is not happening there. That's not a growth industry.
Not a good place for someone to go with the teenage girl he has kidnapped after murdering her boyfriend.
Just a couple of quotes that
where is a good place for that guy to go then? If not Santa Barbara. You just said like it's a bad place for him to go if you just kidnapped your teenage girlfriend. Where's the good place? Like where will accept
Huntington Beach.
Huntington Beach.
Huntington Beach. He would fit in a minute.
Is that how that works? Okay.
Yes. Listen, the Surf Nazis may not have been a documentary, but it would absolutely pointing in the right direction.
Okay, I can give you that.
Visit Huntington Beach. By that meaning, do not pass right through. Do not go to jail. Do not collect $200.
Got it.
A couple of quotes that I heard that because I heard them, I have to say them out loud. We know our constipational rights. A+.
Good line.
Way to go. Good line. I dreamt the man in the moon was laughing at me. There's an entire sequence in which Sherilyn Fenn recounts what her dream is. It has nothing to do with the movie. And she says, the man in the moon was laughing at me.
I think it's
and
a tie-in.
Charlie Sheen responds with, he kind of does that.
I think it's a tie-in to I Saw the TV Glow.
Okay, sure. That's a 1-for-1. Finally, we have the clue that connects it all. Rugs take us. Bad feelings don't add up to resurrections.
I wrote that one down too. The other one I wrote down that you didn't mention, that it's not like an amazing line, but it just you cannot sound cool saying this line. Do it to him Augie style.
Yeah.
When he's about to erase the Wraith, they say, do it to him Augie style. Like, what is Augie's? It's like Andre the Giant and Princess Bride. Oh, I'll do it my way. What's my way? I don't know. Whatever way you do it, that's Augie style. Do it. Man, I don't know.
With a bandana on, I guess. With a half shirt.
I'm trying to communicate with you, Augie, okay? I'm just trying to, you got to give me something in return. You can't question everything I say. I'm supporting you here. I think you should win. Augie.
There's a lot of first draft genius happening here where they hit on something they obviously never erase it, but they probably could have refined it a little bit. At one point, Gutter Boy responds to the idea that they're going to go out and kill somebody by saying, I'm a 4-day virgin. What does that mean?
I think it means...
What is the definition of that
I think it means he
statement?
hasn't had sex in 4 days, which I think is a very, very implausible thing for Gutter Boy to say.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know where he's going to.
Do you
where
mean...
he's finding people.
You know that the people in the porn you're watching aren't like there with you, right, Gutter Boy? You know that doesn't count, right?
Like the 4 days that are here on Earth? Like, are you in a spaceship traveling faster than the speed of light? Like, I don't believe he has had sex in 4 months, 4 years. I just doubt that's happening.
That seems implausible.
At one point, Loomis takes his sugar with coffee while quizzing Billy. I enjoyed that little piece of business.
So much sugar.
It's like, are you the fly? Jesus.
What the fuck is going on?
Again, that's just Randy Quaid desperately trying to entertain himself. It's like, I wonder if I do this, and I do it in every take, they'll have to leave it in.
Yes.
Because we do not have a lot of time for
take it away
coverage.
from me.
We have 2 shots of me, and every single time I'm doing this, it's in the movie. Haha, screw you guys.
Everything I shot with that prairie witch is gone. I got to keep myself in as much of this movie as possible.
There you go.
And so, it's just one killing after the other. And then at the very end, Sheriff Loomis is pretty much like, well, I guess I'll let that supernatural creature get away with multiple murders.
Good luck, you crazy kids.
There comes
Bye.
I guess you're ascending to heaven or outer space or something.
Did you guys ever see the remake of the Thomas Crown Affair with Pierce Brosnan?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a part at the end of that movie because they changed it's a good remake, actually, I think, because they changed.
Oh, it's a great remake.
The original was about this like millionaire who decided to rob banks for fun. And in the remake, they were like, well, robbing banks is kind of messed up. What if he was like a classy art thief? And now all of a sudden it's romantic. And at the end of the movie, when he does this, it's a great ending sequence. I'm not going to ruin it for anybody. You should see it. But like at the end of the movie, when he looks like he's got away with a fancy painting. Dennis Leary, who's been like a beat cop on this thing this whole time, he's like, you know what? I don't care.
Yeah.
I literally don't care if he steals like $1 million painting. There are worse crimes being committed in the world. And I feel like
that's rich people hurting rich people.
Yeah.
And I don't have time for that.
I don't care. And Randy Quaid is like, you know what? I wanted those kids dead too.
Yeah.
I don't care.
As far as I'm concerned, you did my job for me.
Right? The world is.
You don't see me dusting my hands, but I promise you, internally, it's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, they're not a good cop. That's what we're pointing it down to.
He's a terrible cop.
Yeah. And there comes a point where, like, I don't know. I do. The one thing I pity about cops in movies is the paperwork, because you actually have to write that shit up. Like, when you stumble across a Jason Voorhees killing, you actually have to, like, explain in words what happened. And how do you actually, like, well, all right, well, this guy fell asleep and then a dream guy sucked him into the bed and spewed blood all over the ceiling. Yeah. I hope you have no follow-up questions, because I have no follow-up answers.
Listen, we could get into Crystal Lake CSI all day long.
Yes, we should.
But that would prevent us from choosing our own death venture. And that's where we decide, of the deaths in this film, which one would you choose and why? Now, you got one, which is slashed, stabbed, murdered by a gang of dipshits.
Yeah.
And then everyone else just runs headlong into a fucking phantom car or gets blown up in a barn. So that's your three choices.
Okay.
You're first, so you better come up with an answer.
I have an answer. I'm gonna die eating those rancid cheeseburgers, because those things will kill you. Like, they
will, but they don't kill anybody on screen. So we have to choose amongst the deaths that we see in camera.
I feel like
not the cholesterol, which will accumulate slowly.
We are watching, like. You're like saying, that's like saying that, like, you know, if you watch someone get stabbed and then you find out that they died in the hospital off camera, it doesn't count. The burger is the stabbing. But if I must pick another murder, I guess I'll take killed by a car.
Yeah,
I guess I'll take that one.
That's a daring choice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's way better than the alternative. It's car, or a long, torturous stabbing and slashing.
And while you're wearing what appears to be see-through underwear, which was startling.
I believe it's flesh colored, but yes, it has every appearance of it being yet another sort of Deadly Games, you know, weird underwear in the shower situation that we had a couple weeks ago, Gina. But in terms of weird underwear we've seen on the show, it ranks in the top 10.
Yes.
So we're all taking car.
Well, you can either be in the car hitting a car, or you can be standing in a barn and getting hit by the car.
I mean, that's a hell of a explosion. Like the last thought that's in their head is in California by the time it's finished.
I think I would take that one, because, you know, at least I'll have my BFF with me.
Yeah.
You want your BFF to be taken out with you.
Exactly.
That's your that's your best FF. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. They've been through a lot.
Not anymore.
They have a real complex relationship.
Bury them with their WD-40 cans.
Nice.
So that pretty much does it. Josh Hollis does all of our artwork. Go to RevengeBodyMemphis at Bandcamp.com for this theme and all our remixes. William,
yes,
where can people see, read, hear more from you out there on the World Wide Web?
I mostly write for The Wrap these days. I write a lot of movie reviews every single week for TheWrap.com. I also co-host the critically acclaimed Network, which is a series of podcasts hosted by myself and other film critic Whitney Seibold. We have a weekly show where we review new movies, and we just finished a very long, very in-depth podcast series where we reviewed every Godzilla and Godzilla adjacent film. It was called Thank Godzilla It's Friday, and you can listen to all those episodes. Those are still there. We're about to kick off another week, maybe two, another run of Cancel Too Soon, the TV series where we review movies that TV shows that lasted only one season or less. We're going to get to some of the shows that people have always asked us to do, starting off with Geico Cavemen, the sitcom.
Oh, God.
Oh, Lord.
So we're going to, yeah. Well, I've said it before. I'll say it again. If you do it right, being a critic is a full contact sport. But and also we have a Patreon, patreon.com/critically acclaimed network, where you get our shows ad free, but you also get a lot of exclusive shows, including All Our Yesterdays. It's a podcast where we're reviewing every single episode of Star Trek in order. And we're almost done with season 5 of Next Generation. So if you sign up, you get like hundreds of podcasts already done there. But we do commentary tracks. We do a podcast where we're reviewing every film ever nominated for Best Picture and every film ever nominated for Best International Feature at the Academy Awards. We have backlogs. We did a whole series where we reviewed every single Adam West Batman ever. There's a lot of stuff there, and I want to make sure before, because this is a horror podcast, and I know all of your listeners have impeccable taste. My husband, M. Lopez da Silva, has a new book that just came out a couple months ago called Infinity Mathing at the Shore and Other Disruptions by M. Lopez da Silva. It is a collection of their short stories, some of which have been published in other compendiums, and some of them are brand new. It's quite acclaimed. The reviews have been excellent. We've got glitter vomiting deer that start killing people in Los Angeles. We've got a really interesting short story I really love about sort of combining UFC sports stories with kind of a horror element, which is something I don't see done a lot. There's a great story about a dystopian society where they put worms in your head, and the worms try to eat all of the queerness away that they can. It's really, really fantastic, and I realize I'm a little biased, but look at the reviews. So Infinity Mathing at the Shore and Other Disruptions by M. Lopez da Silva. Buy a copy today. You'll be glad you did.
That sounds fantastic. People should rush out. Gina, where can people find you on these here internets?
Well, I am not nearly as busy as William is. But I do write about movies and television. You can find the bulk of my work at The Spool, and I have a Substack, watchesthings.substack.com. You can find me on most social medias under Gina Does Things.
Do it today, people. Check it out. Of course, we have a Patreon as well with tons of episodes for you to check out, bonus episodes, commentaries, and chat by chat and more. And don't worry, folks, the body count will continue. For myself, Gina, and for William. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey parents, Greenlight is here to take one big thing off your to-do list, teaching your kids about money. With a Greenlight debit card and money app of their own, kids and teens learn to earn, save, and invest. You can send money instantly, set flexible controls, and get real-time notifications of your kids' money activity. Set up chores and put allowance on autopilot to reward them for their hard work. Then learn about the world of money together. Get 1 month free when you sign up at greenlight.com/podcast.